So you've been to the bank and found out that based on your equity and borrowing capacity, they'll lend you enough money to buy property valued at $1 million. Should you spend it all on the one property or divide it up amongst two or three? Well, it all comes down to your risk, your appetite for it, and a whole bunch of external factors. Here are some things to consider. Economic risk refers to the impact that the local and national economy has on individual property markets. For those closely watching markets all over Australia and analysing the varied impact that's occurring from the present state of our economy, an interesting phenomenon is emerging as government stimulus, low interest rates and skyrocketing rental yields in the lower end of the market boosts low-priced, high-yield property into a mini-boom of its own. What this means is that for now, and probably for the coming 3 years or so, the greatest benefits from both a cash flow and a growth point of view lies within more affordable property. Now, this is indeed great news for investors who often don't have the means or the desire to be committing large sums of money to a property investment. They can now invest knowing that cash flow is a given and that growth is a strong possibility too. From an economic point of view, even those with shorter time frames to retirement are more likely to see growth in the next few years from lower price property and more likely to see a stabilisation and even further losses in higher price property. Economically speaking, the choice to buy three at say $350,000, as long as your research indicates potential growth from intrinsic drivers such as population growth and economic vibrancy, seems to for now be a better one than buying just one higher priced property. Let's assume that you buy a property valued at $1 million, which has a yield of 3%. Or $30,000 per year. Now imagine that the value of the property grows, but the rent return, which usually behaves separately to growth, remains the same. This may mean that yield would drop to say 2%. In essence, your entire investment is now earning less than it was when you first acquired it. What would happen if you spread that $1 million amongst 3 properties instead, and you chose those 3 properties from 3 entirely different areas, all subject to entirely different and separate rental growth drivers? Since, as I mentioned earlier, property behaves in cycles, but not the same cycle all over the country, it's likely that while one property may have a period of time where rents stagnate, it's highly unlikely that all 3 will stagnate together as long as you've chosen them from different markets. So as an overall summary, your rental yield total may continue to increase every year as 1 or 2 of the 3 should at any one time be growing. The same can be said for the growth issue. It's unlikely that 3 properties from 3 different areas will all stagnate in value at the same time, and so at any one time something in your portfolio will be growing, allowing you to continue to leverage and take advantage of additional bargains which may arise. Spreading your borrowing capacity out over several properties tends to increase the aggregate yield and growth and ensures that you have a continually growing asset base. Owning one property with a cap on yield potential also means that you have exposed yourself to a greater vacancy risk. At $30,000 per annum on your $1 million property, each week that the property is vacant equals a $576 loss in income. If you spread the $1 million over 3 properties, however, even at the same rate of yield, it's unlikely all 3 will be vacant together, especially if you've been sure to buy from different markets. If one becomes vacant, you're only out of pocket $192, and while not ideal, it's far more manageable. The ability to spread vacancy risk in this way is a crucial feature of an early investment portfolio. At the time when your costs are highest and your yields are the lowest, you want to make sure you have the best occupancy possible. When considering vacancy risk, you must also consider the fact that during a recession, properties in lower price brackets, both value and rental yields, will have the lowest vacancy rates. In effect, buying from this market means you have the greatest chance of securing a tenant during the tougher economic times. When you commence or continue a property portfolio, your exit strategy must be one which you plan and consider. Even if your strategy is one of buying and holding, the possibility that you may have to liquidate for any number of reasons must be acknowledged and prepared for. Depending on the circumstances which are requiring this liquidation, then you have all of your assets tied up into the one higher price property. Your options are limited. To realise your gain, reduce your debt, offload a poorly performing property, or for any other reason, you'll need to sell the entire asset, as there's only one of them. If, on the other hand, you had spread this investment over 3 properties, then you might have more options available. Depending on the reason for the need to liquidate, selling just 1 or 2 may suffice, meaning that you can retain some exposure to the market. In addition, the ability to sell the property in the lower part of the market is always much easier than one in the upper end. In a recession with low rates, more first homeowners can buy. In a climate of rising interest rates, fewer people can afford higher priced properties. In the event that you must downsize your portfolio, spreading your investment over several properties provides you with more options and most probably more likelihood of a quick sale too. In addition to the obvious economic and financial factors, there are other issues. Stamp duty to purchase one property valued at $1 million in New South Wales is around $40,700. Stamp duty to buy 3 properties valued at $333,000 each is $31,425. This is because stamp duty becomes proportionately higher as the value increases. Unfair but true. Yields on lower priced property can tend to be higher than those on more expensive properties. This is because rental yield doesn't have as great a variance in an area, town or city as does capital value. It's not unusual to find a property in an area valued at $600,000 achieving $450 a week rent return, while a property elsewhere valued at $300,000 achieves $320 a week. From a yield perspective alone, lower priced property does seem to have better weekly yields. Land tax is also a big consideration. Most states have a tax-free threshold, a certain value of property that you're allowed to own in that state, aside from your family home, which won't attract tax. After that, the combined value of all held property is used to calculate land tax, and in many states this tax can be brutally high. By spreading your purchases amongst many states, you're provided with a tax-free threshold in every state, and you can have a large portfolio of property without ever paying any land tax. And so remember the basic rule of investing. Never put all of your eggs in one basket. This is just another way to suggest that diversification is the key. In property too, diversifying tends to add not only protection to your portfolio, but it also seems to boost yields, guard against serious vacancy issues, and ensures that your portfolio is a constantly growing one.
Come on, let's have some fun. Come on and dream